and he's like, did you get your water? And I was like, no, I was filming you. He says, okay, let's go to HEB, but we end up sitting in his car for about 30 minutes because Connor wants to film stuff. While we were sitting there, he asked me to film 2 more videos that he ended up posting, but I only want to bring attention to one of these videos, which is called I'm Getting Married. Here's a short clip from that video.
So you know, me and Jane, we're actually saving our first kiss for marriage. So we're not gonna kiss until we're on the altar.
I also want to address the comments on this video, and I will do that later, but a few people said that my pupils were big and that I was high, so I just want to reiterate that I am a sober person, and I was sober in this video. They also said that Connor's pupils were big, which should have been a tip-off to me that he was high, but since my pupils were dilated, I guess I attributed it to the low lighting. I'm not trying to make excuses, just please understand that I had no experience with anything like this before, and I was still trying to process what was happening. We drove to HEB to get me water, which Connor paid for, but he also ended up buying a bunch of random stuff like essential oils, a ginger, a single dragon fruit, and the total ended up being over $200. Once we got back to his apartment, I realized that if I don't put these groceries in the fridge, he's not going to. And that is when I went into the kitchen for the first time. There was ayahuasca all over the counter. I asked Connor, how often do you do ayahuasca? And he said, every 2 hours. I did not know that Connor was high until then because he mixed the ayahuasca with like health juices, and so I only saw him drinking those. This was when the magnitude of the situation began to hit me, and I realized that he had been saying all of this weird stuff because he was high. I just started filming everything in the hopes that I could show it to the authorities and get him some help. Here's me putting away the groceries, and you can see the ayahuasca and the scale on the counter on the left side of the screen.
There are pressure points in your... Oh, thank you. There are pressure points in your hand, so when you push down into your hand right here, and you really concentrate, you can start feeling a little bit more chi energy coursing through you.
But I did not feel that Connor was violent. I actually wanted to help him, so I continued to clean for another few hours. At some point, I unboxed a Lord of the Rings ring. I said, oh my god, I love the Lord of the Rings, and Connor told me I could have it. Since he had made the joke about us getting married earlier, I said, are you proposing to me? And he said, yeah, and I thought it was a joke. That's when I recorded the video he later posted to his Instagram after I left.
Connor just proposed to me with the Lord of the Rings ring.
Also, while I was unboxing packages that night, I opened up 4 more bags of ayahuasca he'd ordered. Then it's like midnight, I'm exhausted, I've been cleaning all day, I've been trying to keep up with everything that he's talking about, and so I tell Connor I'm leaving, but I'm gonna come back the next day to clean more. I drove home, I went to bed, I woke up May 5th, and I had a lot of notifications. Connor had posted the video, and now people thought that we were engaged. Then Andrew, remember the friend who introduced us, starts texting me and says Connor just posted his bank routing number and all of his passwords. He also posted his social security number. I call Andrew, and I find out that after I told Andrew that Connor was doing ayahuasca every 2 hours, Andrew had gone over to Connor's apartment after I'd left. Andrew told me that he'd had a long conversation with Connor and had tried to get him to go sober and take a break from the internet.
I can't believe I wake up after this long conversation with him and he just goes and does everything opposite of what he said he was doing. Like, I've never seen his apartment like that. Normally it's like super organized and like clean.
Andrew also said that Connor's dad had called.
Dad's like on the phone last night and he seemed concerned, but it's like no one's fucking doing it.
I tell Andrew that I'm gonna go back over to the apartment and check on Connor. I asked Andrew if he could come with me, but he had to work 11 a.m. to 8 p.m.
If I didn't have work today, I would pull up.
I think we have to do something today.
He's doing ayahuasca every 2 hours.
Every 2 hours, dude.
Yeah, I feel like the more people that talk to him, it just throws him deeper into this psychosis that he's in, you know? Remember when we came to Topgolf, like he was super nice, like it was kind of goofy. He's escalated.
So I guess I'm gonna go over at 1. Do you think he's gonna hurt me if I go over by myself? But I don't want to.
No, he's not an aggressive person.
That's what I'm thinking. Cause like people are like, don't go over there.
Like, he's like the least aggressive person I know at all.
I know, he was really nice to me. I spent the day with him yesterday. Dude, he lost another 1,000 followers this morning. Or I'm gonna ask the officers when they come and get him if I can have his phone. He's convinced that he's just more focused than normal. And now everyone thinks that I'm his girlfriend, and they're like blaming me, and they're like saying I need to do shit. And I'm like, I just met him.
When he started the Prima Sada Yoga, he was uploading it, at least like a decent video. He was uploading like once every couple of days. They were getting a decent amount of views. Now it's gone from that to just spam and ridiculous shit.
And I'm like, you should unprivate your old videos and stuff.
So when I type in Connor Murphy on Google, it literally comes first result. Is Connor Murphy married?
I know. I think I have to do something. Alright, I guess I'll go over to his house. You know where he lives, so I texted Connor, asked if I could come over at 1 p.m., but then Connor posts that someone had drained his bank account. He had $9,000 in there, and it was gone.
He pretty much lost like $9,000 in like just one day from all these like people stealing his money.
When I was with him yesterday, he was spending money like crazy. He spent a bunch on groceries. Are you working till 8 p.m.?
Yeah, I work till 8, but I'm gonna try to get off early.
I hung up with Andrew and asked Connor if I could go over sooner. He said yes, and I quickly drove to his apartment. And there were even more packages on the front porch. There are more packages since I was here yesterday. What did you order?
I don't remember.
Connor was still very calm. I asked him if he had slept, and he said that he'd gotten a 30-minute power nap. I told him he should delete his passwords and his bank information, and he started telling me about how he's God and he needs to give to his followers. Andrew and I agreed to wait to call the cops to see if I could get a hold of Connor's phone in order to call his parents. Connor goes upstairs to edit, so I go and get footage of the ayahuasca in the kitchen. In his cabinet, I found like pounds and pounds of bags of ayahuasca. I go and sit with Connor upstairs as he edits new content. Then the police call Connor's phone. I'm sitting there with him and I filmed it, but I can't post it because under Texas law, at least one party on the phone call has to consent to the recording. I'm gonna call this guy Officer Number 1. Connor picks up. Officer Number 1 is like, this is the police department. Is this Connor Murphy? Connor says yes. Officer Number 1 says, we got a call about your well-being. Are you okay? And Connor's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm a social media guy, so I do some interesting stuff. Officer Number 1 says, oh, okay, but you're not gonna hurt yourself or anybody else? And Connor said, no. Then Officer Number 1 hung up. The call was less than a minute. I'm texting Andrew, keeping him up with all of this, and then Connor's dad calls. I don't want to disclose what his dad said, but after he hung up, Connor told me, I unprivated all of my old videos. He showed me, it was true, and Andrew's like, I've been trying to get him to do that for months. So at this point, it's clear that Connor has developed some sort of trust with me. It's been less than 24 hours since I visited his apartment for the first time, based off of what I'd seen do that for months. So at this point, it's clear that Connor has developed some sort of trust with me. It's been less than 24 hours since I visited his apartment for the first time. Based off of what I'd seen, I knew that the situation needed to be handled by people more qualified than me. Andrew and I agreed that Andrew should be the one to call 911 so we don't risk breaking whatever trust Connor has with us. Andrew called 911 from his workplace, and then Connor told me he was going to take a nap. Andrew calls me back and says that the police told him that they had received an earlier call and that officers were on the scene. I'm like, I'm here right now. I'm at the apartment. Nobody is here. Andrew calls 911 back and tells them that nobody's here, and they told him that they were dispatching officers. I wait 20 more minutes. Nobody's come, so I call Andrew and ask him to call again. tried to help him, and she said that a formal complaint had been filed. I hung up, and I was feeling pretty helpless, but then I remembered that a mental health professional had reached out to me over Instagram. The counselor said he didn't live far from the complex, and he could come over and start working with Connor. I called Andrew, and he encouraged me to bring the counselor to Connor's apartment, so I messaged the counselor back, and we coordinated where we were going to meet. I brought the counselor to Connor's house, and we spent another few hours with him, but the counselor could not have him committed because Connor's not legally his client. I left when the counselor did. I posted the statement to my Instagram story and stopped responding to Connor's texts. That night, Connor posted his apartment address, his phone number, and started giving away the rest of his money via PayPal, Dogecoin, and Cash App. The next day, May 6th, 2 of Connor's followers contact me and say they're going to be driving down from up north to see if they can help him. Their names are Micah and Dylan, and they told Connor they were going to be filming a documentary about him. Micah and Dylan start cleaning Connor's apartment and actually get him to go to the gym. That night, they decide they're going to stay with their friends until next week, and I say I can come over tomorrow and help them clean. I stayed up all night talking to them because Connor's posts were still very erratic, and he ended up doxing another influencer's phone number. I started doing research into ayahuasca addiction, but there's hardly any information because nobody uses it like that, taking it so often. It's such a powerful psychedelic that most people do it once in their lifetime. However, I did read this, which seems applicable to this situation. The actual DMT itself isn't currently known to have a potential for physical addiction or dependence, but what can happen is a psychological craving. People often become psychologically